Hey everyone, so today we'll be doing a slightly different video. We're going to be doing a review of Taiwan and what we thought of it.
So just so background information, we are in Sikihor right now. That's why you see the beach in the background. We are a little bit late on this video. We got a little bit busy so we couldn't film this review. So here we are.
And we'll try to make it quick because to provide this nice background, we have to be in the sun. It's so hot. I'm sweating. So the categories we'll be going over are...
First is food, tourist attractions, people, transportation, safety, is it budget friendly, and lastly, if it's English friendly. First is food, which I think is one of the main reasons why people go to Taiwan. For me, the food was 9 out of 10. It was very, very good. I gave it 1 less than 10 because I wish it was a little saltier than it was, although that might be the Filipino talking in me.
Yeah, I think 9 is pretty fair. I liked it. It had a good variety of food, all very good, easy to get to, like a lot of street food, and it's so cheap. Very normal to eat out in Taiwan. Apparently, eating at home is a luxury. Like most people don't even have a kitchen. It's great when you're traveling because you don't really want to spend time cooking. The only reason I would say it's not 10 out of 10 is not many vegetable options. You really got to go out of your way to find vegetables. Besides that, it was good. Like the pork buns are amazing, dumplings, the beef noodles were good. 7-Eleven and Family Mart had good food options like rice balls.
Yeah, and I would have to say, I think that the night market was like the best part for me. Partly because we're on a budget. I like that it was very busy. So I know you didn't like that. I like that it was really busy, like hustle and bustle. And you go to one place and everything is pretty much there. I feel like every night market had their own special thing. So I really like that. What would you say your favorite food was in Taiwan?
Probably the pork buns or any kind of like the meat buns, because that's the thing I miss most. I think the beef noodles is up there, but the thing I've been missing the most are those like pork buns. So good, the dough's so soft. When you're in Taiwan, you have to do night markets, and it's so different than Canada. I think in Canada, like we have food festivals and we have like so many different food events, but they're always overpriced, pretty low quality. Versus the night markets in Taiwan are actually where all the best food is, and it's also like very cheap. You can eat there every day, and you'd be on a pretty good budget.
Yeah. Honestly, for me, I have 2 things that I want to mention. First is xiaolongbao, because I think that it's so fun to like, there's a soup part, there's a dumpling part, there's the meat part. It's always so filled. It's always big, good portions of meat. In other places, it's more wrapping than meat. And the second part are the mochi. I really like. I forgot which night market it was, but it's this mochi where they fill it with sugar inside and then they put sesame seeds on the outside. It was so cheap too. It's like 50 Taiwanese dollars for like 8 or something like that.
Also, they had like bubble tea. I think like the bubble tea and the drink, super cheap.
How could we forget?
It's like $1 or $2 for bubble tea. I think you just gotta be careful. You don't drink too many of them. So it's a lot of calories that you're drinking.
A lot of sugar.
A lot of sugar, and having caffeine at night is not a good recipe.
Yeah.
For me personally, I guess not everyone believes that, but it really threw off your sleep. Because I was like, why am I not tired at like 2 in the morning? It's like, oh, have bubble tea at midnight.
It's like milk, sugar, and caffeine.
The next category is the tourist attraction. I think we put it at an 8 out of 10. There's a lot of different things to see in Taiwan. Even though we're there for 6 weeks, we didn't see everything. So your mileage may vary. I think there's so much to see there, a lot of nature, a lot of cool mountains and hiking trails and different temples and stuff. So very cool. I think my favorite thing that we saw was, what was the temple? Feng something? Not even close. Feng.
Which temple?
The Golden Buddha in the south was probably my favorite thing.
Shan or something like that? In Kaohsiung, right? The Golden Buddha.
Yeah, that was one of the coolest things I saw. And there are a lot of cool like giant statues in Taiwan, which I think is very cool. You don't have many of them in Canada, so I really enjoy it.
So my personal rating is 7.5 out of 10. It's a little lower. I found that there were some moments when I was kind of underwhelmed by the things that I saw. It's definitely a personal rating because unfortunately we weren't able to do Taroko Gorge, which was very, very sad. We happened to be going on a tour there the day the earthquake hit. Very, very unfortunate. I feel like if that didn't happen, my rating would have been a lot higher. But I remember feeling a little underwhelmed with the anime lane. I don't know why I was expecting more. Maybe because just personally, the animes that I would have wanted to be there weren't there. But that's very personal. Another thing that I was kind of underwhelmed with was Sun Moon Lake. It was beautiful, but honestly, there wasn't much to do. It's just a lake. Very serene lake. It reminded me of Canada, kind of, because, you know, in Canada, all we have are lakes, basically, unless you go to the coast. I think I really enjoyed the tourist attractions when someone was there to show us around, like when Charlie was showing us around in Kaohsiung, because we were able to get more context and a little bit more history of the place. That was a lot more enjoyable than like trying to see it for ourselves.
So I guess get a guided tour then. I think it's probably worth it.
Yeah, and I think, you know, I get a guided tour, but also get a person. Like, it's best if you make a friend. If you can make a friend to show you around, because Charlie was very passionate about Taiwanese history, so that made it very enjoyable.
I would assume most tour guides would also be passionate about history.
That's true.
I think a lot of the attractions don't have English subtitles or translations.
Yeah.
So it makes it hard to kind of fully enjoy some of the spots. So if you go with that can translate for you, I think that would help a lot. Yeah, there's a lot of cool history in Taiwan. If you can figure out a way to understand it, I think it would make the experience a little better.
The next category that we have is the people. So I'm a little biased, I think. I put it as 100 out of 10. We had the opportunity to stay there for a month and a half rather than maybe like 3 days or 4 days that normal people do when they're traveling. Because of that, we had the time to go on these language events where we met either travelers or and locals alike. So because of that, we were really able to, talk to people, understand the culture better, get their perspective on a lot of things. So yeah, everyone was very nice. I actually look forward to seeing them again when I do go back to Taiwan.
I'm definitely not going to rate it 100 out of 10 because that's not a real skill. But yeah, I say it's like a 9. Yeah, maybe a 9 out of 10 because there's not many backpackers in Taiwan. It's not really a backpacking country, so it's hard to meet other fellow travelers. But it's mostly locals and like people studying in Taiwan, like students. So you can't meet other people who are traveling there with you. And it was hard to meet other people in general because we didn't stay in hostels because it was quite expensive. Like we stayed at Airbnbs because it was much cheaper. So it made it harder to meet people. The only reason we ended up meeting people is because we did a language exchange. So there are a lot of free events. So language exchange was great. I think if you're in Taipei, I would recommend going to Charlie's events, which we'll link below. But yeah, I found it was hard to meet people, but the people we did meet were friendly. The next category is transportation. Probably rate it maybe like a 9 or even a 10. I think the transportation was really good in Taiwan. Public transportation system on point, super fast, efficient. It's never late. It runs like every 5 minutes. It has long hours. When we were in Taipei, we took the MRT, which is their subway line, and that was really good. It was very cheap. It was like $1 or $2 to take it per trip, and you could just like load up a card. You get like essentially like a Presto card in Canada, but essentially a prepaid card, and you just tap wherever you go. It's very simple, works very well. The subway lines are really good. You can get pretty much anywhere you want to get to in Taipei with the subway, and then even in some of the other bigger cities, they have a subway, albeit a little bit smaller. And then the bus system was also very good. You can just Google how to get somewhere, and then you can just find out on Google what bus to take. And there's usually a bunch of different options, and then you just like tap to get on, tap to get off, and they're really fast, which was great. One of the running jokes in Taiwan is like the buses are so like chaotic because like as soon as you get on, they start moving again. So you gotta really be on your toes, but it's great.
It's not very smooth, you mean?
Yeah, it's not as smooth, but like that's why they're never late because they're not stopping for anyone. Like you get on and we're moving. Like, so it's very fast. Buses aren't very delayed. 90% of the bus stops have a digital sign showing exactly like real time when the bus is coming, which is great. So even though we didn't speak the language, they would have it in Mandarin characters and then they would have it in English characters. So you could easily figure out where to go. Besides the trains, the buses, last minute in a pinch, you can take an Uber for pretty cheap, like much cheaper than Canada. They also had bikes that you could take. If you wanted to get somewhere a short distance and you wanted a little bit of exercise, you could take a bike and you use the same prepaid transportation card and you just tap the bikes, pull out the bike, and then you just bike for like 30 minutes to an hour and then you tap off and it's like $1.50. Overall, I think the transportation is like one of the best I've ever experienced. Yeah, probably the #1 transportation system I've experienced personally. Makes the Canadian system look pretty bad. The TTC is not holding up well internationally.
I pretty much agree with you. 9, if not 10 out of 10 for transportation. It's very cheap compared to Canadian prices. Like you said, it wasn't hard to find directions if you wanted to go places. There were some moments when we missed a bus or we were supposed to take a bus, but it was actually, the service ended, so we had to like walk for like 40 minutes. But that's not a big deal. I feel like the more we took it, the better we were at it. We did make some mistakes, but that's only because, we weren't locals and we were just trying to figure things out. Trains on time, very clean. I feel like the conductors and the bus drivers were very, very professional. Again, I'm comparing it to the Toronto system because that's the only thing I can compare it to. It really shows that they take pride of their job.
People aren't playing music on their speakers and stuff like that.
Yes.
So it's very quiet, which is great.
That was one of the best parts. I feel like, I just took that for granted because coming to the Philippines where for some reason they don't really like wearing headphones at cafes where you're supposed to be like kind of in a mellow mood, either working or studying, they're like playing that TikTok loud on blast.
And then the only other thing I say is like they also have trains connecting all the different cities. So they have like the high speed bullet train, which is great. You can get from like north to south in like an hour, which is amazing if you're doing day trips and kind of on a tight schedule, and like trains going like 300 kilometers an hour. So you can get places really quickly. And then even if you want to take just a regular train, a lot of different options, and it's quite reasonably priced. Like we're spending like $20 to $30 to go from like the north of Taiwan all the way to the south of Taiwan. Overall, very great infrastructure for getting around the country.
The next category that we have was safety. For me, it's a 10 out of 10. Being the first country that we have for our year-long trip as a girls, safety is something that's always on my mind. I remember looking it up online and I was impressed that Taiwan was one of the lowest crime rates in the world. Honestly, I don't doubt it. I have never felt unsafe in Taipei or anywhere, really. You know, there were times when I went to places on my own at night or anything like things like that, and I never felt in danger. Everyone walks out with their like latest smartphones. You could tell that everyone felt very safe. Theft or violence, or I have never felt that at all.
I gotta say 10 out of 10 for safety. It was like very safe. Never felt that we were in a sketchy area or anything could go wrong. Like as Diane mentioned, like people walk around with their phone, looking down, oblivious to everything, and you can tell it's because they don't have to worry about anything. We even like left our phone out, and then like we remember like a couple minutes later, and you have no doubt that it's still gonna be there, which is great. We even left our camera on the train one time, which was a little bit embarrassing, and like someone picked it up, and then we noticed later, and we're like, oh, that's our camera, and then we just got it back. Where I think if we did that in like Europe, that camera would be long gone.
Or the Philippines.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
I think if something happened, like people around would probably say something, but we never were even in a situation where that had to happen. I think I talked to some people in Taiwan who were like, oh, can we go to Canada? Like they're a little bit worried about safety. And I was like, if you're worried about safety, every country is going to be more dangerous than Taiwan. You're going to have to accept a little bit of risk. But if you're going to Taiwan, it's great.
Unless you go to those, like the 4 other countries or 4 other cities that were higher than Taiwan in terms of lowest crime rates. But otherwise, yeah, I would say that everything else is a little bit more dangerous in terms of crime rate.
All right, so the next category is cost, or how budget friendly it was. And I would say maybe like a 7.5 or an 8. Going into the trip, I thought Taiwan was going to be our most expensive country, and I was a little bit worried that we'd be going over budget a little bit. But when we got there, I was pleasantly surprised that it wasn't actually that bad. The food was extremely cheap, which was surprising, which I really enjoyed. And that's one of the biggest 3 categories you're gonna have is food. Besides some groceries or like bananas we bought, 95 or 99% of everything we bought to eat, we just ate out or like bought it at a convenience store. And even doing that, we were easily able to stay under $40, essentially staying under 30 US per day for 2 people. For a month, it's like 900 USD, which is very cheap, much cheaper than I thought. And we weren't being extremely frugal either. We were having bubble tea like 4 to 5 times a week, if not more at some points. We were trying out all the different foods. The only thing we didn't do is go to more expensive restaurants. But besides that, we went to the night markets to get most of our food, which is high quality, has the best food in my opinion. And it's like very reasonably priced. You're getting a meal for $3 to $4. The thing that's a little bit more expensive is accommodation. So there's not many hostels in Taiwan, unfortunately. So we ended up going with cheaper Airbnbs or hotels. One of the ways we were able to save money was going with like longer stay Airbnbs. In Taipei, we stayed for 4 weeks. We were able to get like 30 or 40% discount, and we paid $750 Canadian, which is like 600 USD for a month or for 4 weeks, which is very good. I think for the entire 6 weeks, we spent 850 USD, and we could have saved a little bit more money if we stayed in one place the whole time. Entertainment was pretty cheap. Like museums are reasonably priced or free, but besides that, like a lot of things are free, like parks or just walking around. Like a lot of the statues are free to visit. So I think over the 6 weeks, we spent $450 on entertainment, which is pretty reasonable, and it includes things like our Netflix cost, Spotify, things like that. And then we had like our Taroko Gorge day trip, which was I think like $70, which is one of the more expensive things we did. But overall, like it was very cheap. If you're gonna do guided tours every couple of days, it might be more expensive, but you don't have to spend money to enjoy ourselves in Taiwan. Transportation is very cheap. For 6 weeks, we spent $410, and that was like taking the public transportation, like the prepaid card, a couple of Ubers here and there. All in all, for 43 days in Taiwan, we spent $3,600. Yeah, we spent like $3,500 US for 43 days in Taiwan, so not bad overall. So yeah, pretty happy with Taiwan. You could do it budget friendly if you want. You just got to be more conscious of it.
I'm gonna pause really quickly because there's kids in front of us. You wanna say hi? Hi. Because I feel like, you know, there were a lot of moments that I'm so distracted. Last category, is it English friendly or not? I would give that 5 out of 10. I think even lower in some moments.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, able to meet a lot of English speaking people, especially, you know, people who were in school to learn English, and there were also travelers who were there to learn Chinese. But in terms of regular living, for example, if you weren't at a touristy area and you were ordering food, 95% out of the time, no one speaks English. It's a lot of pointing and charades. I want to clarify that it's not a fault to Taiwan that no one speaks English or that very little people speaks English. I feel like some people would want to know if you were traveling there.
I think 5 is pretty generous. I'd say it's like a 3 out of 10. And it's not because they don't speak English. It's also because they use Chinese characters. It makes it a little bit harder because even if you don't know Spanish or another kind of Latin language, you can identify the letters and you can kind of like Google it and then match it. Because all the menus 90% of the time are in full Mandarin, it's very hard. Even with like searching it, like I could not identify chicken. Even though like I could Google the word chicken in Mandarin, I can't point it on a menu still. Yeah, it's not a fault of Taiwan that they don't speak a different language, but it does make it a little bit harder as an English traveler. More like in the Philippines, they use English letters, so you can identify the words even if you don't speak the language a little bit easier, where I found it very tricky in Taiwan to do that. But like we still managed to survive. You use Google Translate, you take a photo of the menu and it'll translate it. The trickiest part of Taiwan is, yeah, it's hard for an English traveler to get around. That's not a reason not to go. It's just something to know before you go there. That being said, per category, I think overall we really enjoyed our time in Taiwan. I was pleasantly surprised with Taiwan overall. I was not expecting to like it as much as I did. It's just a very more modern country. They have infrastructure there, so it's easy to get around, easy to get food. The food is delicious, it's cheap. And I thought it was very cool to be in a Mandarin speaking country because all the signs are in Mandarin. It's like a huge culture shock, which is fun as a traveler. It makes it harder to get around, but it's more fun and interesting. And I would highly recommend it if you're thinking about it. And if you're not thinking about it, I would consider it at least. The people are very proud to be Taiwanese and they take pride in making the country as good as possible. So it's always getting better, it's always improving. We read some sign about the subway system and they're like, they take a lot of pride in it. They're making improvements, have like what, a 95% on time rate. They had like a big incident, some safety issues. And at one point people were scared to take the subway and they made it a big priority to fix that. Seeing that like they identify an issue and then they're willing to kind of fix it shows that they actually care about making their country better. Taiwanese people we talked to took a lot of pride in being Taiwanese, which is cool to see. I think we've kind of lost that in Canada. I think it's reason to visit Taiwan.
Yeah, I guess I'll give my summary too. So to give some context why Suroy says he was pleasantly surprised, we weren't supposed to go to Taiwan for this trip, having to go somewhere else before the Philippines because we had to time it with my mom's birthday, my grandpa's birthday, a lot of things. So original plan did not include Taiwan. We were going to start in the Philippines. Personally, knew that I wanted to go to Taiwan at some point in my life because of this show that I grew up with. It's called Meteor Garden, if you know it. My original plan was definitely hitting up those places where they filmed the show, but within the 1 month and a half that we were there, I was like, oh, let me rewatch the show, right? And rewatching it as an adult, you're watching it with a whole like new pairs of eyes. I realized how unhealthy and anyway, it was not as enjoyable as it was when I was growing up. I ended up skipping that, but otherwise, it was very enjoyable. I would love to go again. Because of the people that I met there who were there to learn Chinese, they actually inspired me to come back and learn Chinese myself. And I'd love to do that, to maybe teach English at the same time. That'd be great.
Yeah, that would be cool.
Yeah. I'd love to come back. We're going back, right?
Maybe. If we have time one day, who knows?
In the future.
Yeah.
Sometime.
Yeah.
It's a really nice country. Thank you so much for watching. If you made it to the very, very end, we really appreciate you. If you did like the Taiwan series or if you like this video, please give us a like and subscribe, and we'll see you later.
Yeah. All right. Next week we're posting Filipino content, so looking forward to that. It's finally coming.